My name is Jumi, and welcome to Wellspring Vital Hub. Today, I have a special guest with me, Sharon Lewis. So, welcome. On this platform, we usually talk about health, but today we're having a real conversation about money. So, the stress of our finances, pressure, and how it quietly impact our health, especially as we enter the new year. So, there's the evidence that financial stress can actually affect the sleep, blood pressure, our overall health, well-being, and all this can lead to, health consequences, and including the risk of stroke. So that's why I'm excited to have a specialist here with us today. I don't know much about money, but I know money can also, add to our stress, like I said earlier. So that's why I'm so excited to have Sharon. So Sharon is a financial advisor. She's a good friend of mine. We met years ago when our daughters were in elementary school. Now they're in high school. So I've known her for years and she managed my finances. So all best to bring on this platform to talk about this. So she's a financial advisor. She's an author. She's also a coach who helps individuals and family plan, save, and invest money. So it is with great pleasure and honor to have you here as a guest. So Sharon, I will leave the floor for you to introduce yourself.
You, Jumi. Actually, you provided a lot of great background. Thank you so much. Like Jumi mentioned, I am a licensed financial advisor. I've been in financial services for a long time, over 20 years. And I tell folks that I didn't get here because I was great with money. I had my share of lumps as well. So sometimes you learn through experience. And through my experience, my goal is to help others as well. So yeah, and like Jimmy mentioned, I am an author of Daphne Dollars and Friends Financial Education Series. The premise of the book was based off of my experience with being in the field with adults, realizing the trauma, the anxiety, the fear we as adults were experiencing and miseducation when I would approach them. And I kind of felt like we shouldn't learn about money as an adult. We really should learn about money as kids, just like how we teach our children about manners, our religion, things like that, healthy choices. We need to teach our children about money.
Thank you so much. I was going to ask you a question about how did you get into financial things, but you already mentioned that because of your, background. But the very first question I want to ask you, so let's dive in because I know people are waiting. So from your experience, what are the most common money worries people come to you with since you're a financial advisor?
Yeah, I would say the most common worries are not having enough money set aside to save, um, debt, and those who might put money away to save, they tend to go in and dip back into their savings. So those are typically some of the most common situations I come across.
Okay, thank you for that. So when you say people don't have enough money saved, what age do you think people should start saving money? Because I mean, some people start working when they're 16. Should they start saving money when you start making that maybe $10 an hour, or should you wait till you start making good money for you to start saving?
Good money. I love that term, good money. I find that, well, as parents, number one, I think as soon as our kids are starting to receive an income or money, we need to have those money conversations. So let's just say they receive money for birthdays and graduations and things like that. We have to teach our children to separate that money, even if it's $10. We're going to put a bucket of money for what you can spend. Maybe even if you are, of a certain faith, you may want to give. So maybe you allocate a portion to give, and then the other portion is for future self investing. I mean, I know introducing the topic of investing might be a little bit cumbersome or for folks who may not be familiar with it, but I always believe just saving, putting your money in three different buckets, teaching those skills early, um, and that way when they actually start working, they have it ingrained in them to separate their money. So the earlier you can start, the better. When they start actually working a part-time job, parents, do not let up on your kids. You also talk to them. I mean, you don't want to like command it. You want to have a conversation and talk about the importance of it. Because for my daughters and my nieces, I was able to speak with my girls about investing. And even though they may not truly understand everything, they were able to start with their retirement accounts at 16, 17 years old. So imagine helping them build wealth at the age of 16 when they get that first part-time job, what their life is going to look like in 20 years. So as early as you can start is the better.
Is there like a limit to how much you can start with? Because I think when people hear about investment, you're thinking about, oh, I have to have thousands of dollars to invest. Like, how little can you invest with?
Yeah, it depends on the company you work with. Some companies will not even speak to you unless you have $250,000 to
Okay.
invest,
Okay.
right? So and if they have a service, they'll direct you to their automated line. So, you wouldn't even speak to a person. However, the company that I work with, we start with as little as $25 a month because our target market is middle America. So if you've purchased Chick-fil-A and Starbucks last week, you can invest money.
That's good. Yeah, because my kids love Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
So I think they can invest at McDonald's.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's good. So I'm glad to hear that you can invest as little as $25.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
I
and
think,
do sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I'm glad that you can go as low as that. So people in high school that can actually start investing. So go
Oh,
ahead.
yes. I was just going to say you can start at 25, but we don't want to stay in the $25 club
Yeah,
because
I
that's
realized
yeah,
that I was more like for people starting out, like baby steps, like we
yes,
just want people to
yes,
say, okay, I don't make that much money. I have so many bills, but at least I can start somewhere and then
exactly.
eventually maybe go up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Every year you should pay because what you're doing is paying yourself. So every year you pay yours, even if you go up $5, that's a big deal. Imagine you go up $5 every year, every quarter, it makes a big difference.
great. Thank you, Sharon. So another question that I do have is as we're entering into the new year. So new year is going to be in a couple of weeks. I know this year's been a lot of people lost their jobs, and I know people will be looking at what to do with their money. People are like, why am I even saving? I don't even have a job, or maybe I just got a job. So as people are entering into the new year, what advice would you give people? Even with everything that they're going through on investing. Like, do you still think it's a good idea to invest a little money that they have? And I know some people have money invested and they want to pull the money out. Like, what advice do you give people as we're entering this new year?
Okay, a couple of things. With investing, I hope that you're working with a financial professional because that's one thing I recommend. Some people think you have to work with a financial advisor when things are bad. No, you need to work with a financial advisor when things are good, because good or bad. Because you think of all of the successful people out there, they have a team of people that help them make decisions. But unfortunately, sometimes, folks, middle Americans think, oh, I can do this by myself, right? But if I can perform surgery on myself, but there's a professional doctor that went to school for it, why would I perform surgery on myself, right? So I think number one, seeking financial advisors that specialize in this area because we take the emotion out of the decisions that you may want to make. So, or that may not align with your goals. So, when it comes to investing, one thing I like to do is talk to folks about, well, what are your goals? Right. So understanding your goals are super important. So if your goals have not changed, the investment strategy that you align with those goals should not change. If you plan to retire, then you should continue investing for retirement. If your retirement is 10, 15, 20 years from now, then you should not make short-term decisions on today that will have a lasting impact for your future. So, understanding what your goals are super important when it comes to investing. When should you invest? Now. Should you stop investing? No. But I do understand that, like you said, if you lost your job, and you're not working and you're not able to put the money aside, then you can kind of take a look at where your money is going, not just with investing, but look at your whole entire picture. Because sometimes we look in silos. We're like, I'm not going to invest, but meanwhile, we're spending all of this money over here on Amazon. Well, that defeats the purpose, right? So I definitely think one of the tips I would give is really evaluating the money that's coming in, the money that's going out, and even that, not just what you think it's happening in your head, but really look at those numbers that's happening in your bank account to help you figure out what is going on with your dollars so that you can make more informed decisions.
Those are great advice. Thank you. One thing I wanted to say again, for me, I do invest and I also have my savings. I believe in not putting all my eggs in one basket, as you can say. So, um, do you think it's a good idea to put a lot of money into savings? Because I like to see my money, right? With everything that's going on. So I like to see a lot of money in my savings so I can go pull it out when I want to. So do you think that's, I mean, I know a lot of people do this. So do you think I'm doing the right thing? Because that way I'm not stressed out. Like I said, stress can lead to other things, headache. When I'm stressed, I get a headache, and that can lead to other things. So me being able to see my money is not stressing me out. But what do you advise? Do you think, oh, you don't really have to put so much into your saving, just invest it? Like, what do you advise at this stage?
Yeah, definitely. So those are great questions. It goes back to the buckets. All of your money should not be heavy in one spot.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, most of us have our money heavy in the banks. So we'll put all of our money in the banks, but then we have less money in our investment accounts. The banks, when you look at what the banks are giving you from a return, your money, you are working hard for your money when you have it in the bank. But when you're putting your money in an investment account, your money is working hard for you. So, what I always like to talk about is if the money that goes into your bank account should be money that you need easy access to. It should be the money that covers your bills, your groceries, the fun stuff that you want to do, anything that you need easy access to within that year. So, once you've established that amount, the next bucket is your emergency money. That is at least $1,000 if you're just starting off to 3 to 6 months of your income in that separate bucket. And so I do and when talk about buckets, it shouldn't be combined with your regular everyday money. I call it everyday money. So your emergency money should be separate in a different account. It should not be in an investment account because it's an emergency. You want also easy access to that. So that's 3 to 6 months of your income or even up to 1 year. I know it's not easy for folks to get to that number, but it's going to be over time that you have a strategy to build your emergency fund. It's not overnight. So that's the second bucket. And then the third would be short-term goals that you may have. That could be goals that you want to achieve maybe 2 years, 5, 7, 10, way before retirement. So those in between life goals that you may have. And it could be things like college education for your kids if you want to spend that money there, buying another rental property, purchasing your first home, traveling the world, all of those things that you want to do, that can be invested into a short-term goal. And then you have your wealth building, which is more retirement. So those are like four buckets main buckets. And within each of those buckets, you can even have multiple accounts for those particular buckets. And separating it makes it a little bit easier to me to align with your goals. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does, it does. And I'm sure people listening, if you want more information, they can definitely reach out to you. Do you give like free consultation if people reach out to you to get more information? Because it might feel overwhelming for some people. Like this is too much information. Do you give out like
Yes.
free? Mhm.
I do. And I do understand money can be very overwhelming, especially if it's not a conversation you grew up with. Most of us have not been in households where money was talked openly. It's always a topic where it was like taboo. So so yes, I'll give you my contact information, but folks can reach me at either my website, www.sharonmlewis.com, or, through Instagram, which is Sharon M. Lewis Money Coach. You can reach me there as well.
Okay, we're not done yet, but I'm like,
Okay.
all this information is like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed just listening to it. But I know if I'm overwhelmed, a lot of people will be. So I'm throwing it out there, but we're not done yet. So another question as we entering into the new year, what are some of the boundaries, like two or three boundaries we should set for ourselves in terms of our money? What we should, boundaries about lending money to our friends, our family, those kind of boundaries. As a financial advisor, what would you say those boundaries are?
Yeah, I definitely think when it comes to that, sometimes we want to help folks more than what we may have. So I always recommend never help people that will cause a deficit to you. So if you have to go into debt to help someone out, it's not helpful because now you're going to be strained. Okay. The other area is maybe you do have the financial means to help someone. And I think it's definitely very um you know, it's very kind when you can help. So the other area is sometimes you can help people, and depending on that person, the money you give, just in your mind, say to yourself, if they don't give this money back to me, I will still be okay. So so if you're in a position where you're like, I'm giving it to them, I mean, I'm loaning it to them, but in my mind, I'm giving it to them. I don't need this money, right? But you definitely want to cut it off when you're finding that you're constantly giving to people, and it's the same repeated person, maybe. And maybe you have to look at, well, they need more than what I can actually give because clearly they're not taking this blessing and doing things more positive with it. So sometimes you just have to say no when you find that it turns more into they're taking advantage of you as opposed to, they really need your help. So those are the two things I would say. For boundaries when it comes to money. Is just make sure you have some sort of, and if you do give money, like we talked about this, Jumi, just a second ago, was just maybe writing down an agreement when they're going to pay you back, so you have it in writing. So those are some of the boundaries that I would suggest. I mean, if there are other questions or things, challenges folks are dealing with, they can always reach out to me separately and we can talk about that.
Thank you, Sharon. Those are great. And definitely, you should always have it in writing and maybe even say you're going to charge them some interest. I think that will make people want to pay back. Like if you don't pay it after a certain time, if the interest is 4%, it will go to 6%. Like just have
Yes.
that in writing and make sure you stamp it and go to maybe I don't know where you go to, just have them stamp it. But those are great boundaries. So another question that I do have.